Look, the state of Florida has been very adamant in a bipartisan way, Hugh, to stand with Israel, to stand with their right to defend themselves, to stand with the Jewish community. What's happening is a tragic event that, quite frankly, I don't even think we've seen the worst of it yet.
And I got a treat for you folks in the key. You have a Florida speaker, and you have a Florida speaker designate. And the Florida speaker designate is Danny Perez, one of our favorite people, because I met him at the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC.org, and he's been a friend since then. Danny, good morning. Now we've added the keys, so I don't know if anyone gets up before 11 o'clock in the morning in the keys. What do you think?
Good morning, Hugh. No, the Keys lifestyle is a different lifestyle. They're still recovering from the night before.
Yeah, so if anyone is, maybe they're just coming home. That's the other thing we could be talking about. They could just be coming home. Danny, when I saw you, I guess it is about 17 days ago in Washington at the ALEC Gala, the horrific things in Israel had not happened. Now the world has changed and we're on the precipice of war. How do you feel about it in Florida? How is Florida reacting to this massacre of, it's going to be 15 or 1,600 Israelis before we're done, the taking of hostages, the atrocities? What's been the reaction in Miami, which you represent?
Well, look, the state of Florida has been very adamant in a bipartisan way, Hugh, to stand with Israel, to stand with their right to defend themselves, to stand with the Jewish community. What's happening is a tragic event that, quite frankly, I don't even think we've seen the worst of it yet. You know, this is not going to be a 4-week war. This is going to take months, and until Hamas is eliminated, the Israelis have to continue to fight as they should. But here in Florida, we are going back to a special session in exactly 1 week here. And the only reason we are going back is to make sure that we do two things, Hugh. First, that we file a resolution that shows our solidarity with Israel and the right for them to defend themselves and for them to be a sovereign nation. And then two, to make sure that any state funds that are being used in any way, shape, or form towards an Iranian entity or the Iranian government, which sometimes happens through pension funds, we will make sure that can no longer happen. So we are boycotting Iran in any sort of investment on behalf of the state for state dollars, and we'll be doing that in the next couple of weeks here to show our solidarity with Israel.
Now, Danny Perez, the University of Florida has a new president, Ben Sasse, friend of mine, friend of yours, friend of Governor DeSantis, friend of everyone in Washington, D.C. He put out the most clear statement of support for Israel and denunciation of the terrorist attack, the savagery, the barbarism in southern Israel. Are you going to back him up? Is the Florida legislature going to back him up? Are you going to give Florida presidents, school university presidents, the authority to dismiss people who are inciting anti-Semitic violence? And I think a lot of campuses are inciting anti-Semitic violence everywhere.
And so you're right. Ben Sasse is a great man. Hugh, we've already done that in the state of Florida. Last session, we did that. And it was a delicate balance between freedom of speech and making sure that we knock terrorism the way that we should, which is in a place where there is no existence for anyone that believes in terrorism, supports terrorism, or opinionates in favor of terrorism. But we've done that. So now it's a matter of holding these people accountable because we've implemented those laws. We've, unfortunately, and this is not something that I'm proud of, unfortunately, we have had our fair share of anti-Semitic events here in the state of Florida. We have had synagogues be burned down. We have had schools been infiltrated, specifically to the Jewish community. And so what we have the ability to hold them accountable. And so now it's just a matter of us at the legislative level implementing what we were so quick to pass last session.
Now, it is interesting to me, President, I want to say this right. Florida Speaker Designate Perez. I am a big First Amendment person. I know the Brandenburg test. You cannot outlaw speech unless it intends to incite violence and has the imminent likelihood of doing so. So you can't punish pure speech, but you can certainly cut off funding to groups that advocate anti-Semitism. You don't have to give any money to anyone. State funding is something that's up to you. Do you think you will defund universities that refuse to take action to protect their Jewish students from anti-Semitism?
I think everything's on the table right now, Hugh. But we've been very fortunate that the university system has shown their solidarity with Israel, but more importantly, has been able to speak out against the hate of terror that Hamas has caused. I mean, let's not forget the root of evil here. Their name is Hamas, but they have infiltrated the entire world. You're seeing which is insane to me. You are seeing people support Hamas all over the world under the disguise of a Palestinian flag, which quite frankly is something that everyone's onto. If you support what's going on in Israel on behalf of Hamas, you are a terrorist. There is no ands, ifs, or buts. I don't care what flag you have. If you don't speak out vocally, firmly, strongly against what's happening on behalf of Hamas, you are a terrorist in my eyes. And anyone that coincides with that opinion has to be brought to the table. And yes, they should not be using state funds at all. And we're taking that step, even an additional step forward with making sure that Iran, not only Hamas, because let's be very honest here, Hamas is being backed by Iran, whether Iran wants to admit it or not. We're seeing it. The proof is in the pudding. So we got to hit them right where it hurts. We got to hit Iran, and we're going to be doing that in Florida.
Now, the interesting thing about pension funds, the American Legislative Exchange Council, and you're such a great representative of ALEC.org, and I recommend to my audience, especially in the Keys, to go to richstatespoorstates.org and find out why Florida is ranked second in that listing. Maybe you'll overtake Utah sometime. But one of the great things about ALEC is they focus on pension funds, the abuse of pension funds and the missed opportunities of pension funds. How much control does the Florida legislature have over the Florida State Pension Fund for public employees, teachers, et cetera?
Significant, absolute. We've been making sure that the tax dollars that are being used through these pension funds for people that are putting money into the state pension funds, that we're investing in ideologies that are American and that believe in the Constitution, but at the same time that aren't being taken into other regimes. And we've done that with Venezuela, with Cuba, and now with Iran. I mean, we've made sure that we are not investing in communist regimes because, it's very easy to look the other way, but we can't do that. We refuse to do that in Florida. And so any communist regime that has any stake on any investment that the pension fund could potentially invest in on behalf of the state has been taken off the table. And this is only the beginning. We have to continue to look at it. Obviously, we have a massive problem with China, which is a morning show of its own between you and I. Scares the hell out of me because, they are already here, and we have to think of them the same way we think of many of these communist regimes that we're talking about today, like in Iran. China is capable of the most evil, and we must be watching them at all times. But they pretend to throw the rock and then put their hand behind their back. But we're on to them, and we've been passing policy to make sure that they don't invest our economy, let alone our pension fund.
Now, I want to close, Speaker Designate Perez, with a different subject, and it's a little bit lighthearted, but nevertheless, I want to bring it up on a dark Monday morning where the war is looming. And that is the fact that the Eagles shattered the Dolphins last night. I mean, they wasn't even close. They just crushed them. Now, my Browns won yesterday. I'm just wondering, have you given up on the Dolphins now that they've been exposed as a fake team? Papier-mâché Dolphins.
Oh, my gosh. Well, first of all, the 1972 Dolphins live on forever, so we popped our champagne. That's the most
You're worse than the
right?
Steelers fans. They're always living in the 70s.
That's number one. And number two, I don't know if you saw the game, but the refs completely blew us out themselves. The Eagles didn't beat us. The refs beat us last night with a side of Jalen Hurts, but Tua's going to come back. And I don't know if you know that Tyreek Hill isn't just the best wide receiver in the NFL. He is potentially, by the time he is done, you're hearing it here first, one of the best wide receivers in the history of the NFL. The cheetah is here to stay, Hugh.
I'm sorry. I grew up with Paul Warfield in Warren, Ohio, and you got the downhill of his career. He was a Browns before he was a Dolphin. But, I mean, they melted in the rain last night. I just said they're papier-mâché Dolphins. I thought Dolphins were supposed to be, durable beasts, but they just fell apart, Danny.
Yeah, the Dolphins looked like Flipper last night, but we're going to come back and we're going to look like that. We're going to look like that mean mammal that we really are.
All right. Thank you, Speaker Perez. It's so good to talk to Danny in the morning.